Hogstye.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hogstye. This is Alex Zeese coming at you. We have the full crew, the new crew, Steve, Jamal, and Robert, all here on the show together in what is going to be an interesting show because, let's face facts, this might be the last show where they are called the Redskins. We are hearing news reports from all the beat reporters, all the national reporters that it could be the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours, but probably sometime this week, the team is going to announce a name change, and that is probably topic number one for us. Big story. I know, Steve, you're still probably not happy about this, but it's kind of, it seems a fait complete, and I'm not going to say that the French way because I just can't. But anyway, guys, that's going to be the big story, I think, today, and then we'll get into the roster and defensive ends and fun stuff like that we actually like talking about a little bit more later. But let's start with the name change stuff. I will tell you this. On Twitter, I just randomly said, here are my top 5 names, and put that out there. And my number one was Red Wolves. You don't care about the rest, but it got more likes and retweets than anything I've ever had. Like, I think this story, when it comes to social media, it's just insane.
Did I retweet it for you, or did people just take it and run with it?
I think people just take it and run with it. You
really?
know? Yeah. I got more responses than I have followers. So,
first of all, this was a fait complete. You know, the second FedEx essentially threatened to pull out. It was done then. You know, it was going to happen. No, I don't like it. I still don't like it. Still not happy with it. I mean, the world's going to keep turning. Right. You know, for me, but no, I don't like it at all. And I just, you know, I've already been through my position on that.
So what's your name? What's the new name for you, Steve?
Well, to be honest, the one I liked, the only one I liked was Braves. What Rob brought up, because there's a tie to the history of the team. I could actually live with that and not be mad about Braves. But it doesn't sound like that's even in consideration.
Yeah,
but that
I just wanted to see if you were going to be, if you were considered a name at the very least, or something that you preferred.
Well, again, it's like the world's going to keep turning. Yeah. You know, you know, if it's a matter of, you know, changing the colors and erasing history and all that stuff, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. But I've always maintained we'll just have to see when it happens.
Yeah, and I think it's been pretty much established they're not changing the team colors. It's going to be the burgundy and gold. It's
established by the Twitter Illuminati. I mean, who knows what's wrong with that?
The Twitter Illuminati. Yeah. Well, you guys kind of understand my perspective. I'm a young fan, born in '93, so I don't understand. I don't know what winning is in professional sports for football. So I understand where everybody who's older than me and who's seen championships, I understand their perspective. I take their feelings into consideration. So I'm not even mad at that aspect. For me, I'm like, all right, well, shoot, all right, can we win now? Can we get this whole stuff past us? And you know, that's my whole feeling on the thing. It's kind of crazy because my parents, you know, they obviously they're in their 60s. And they got friends in that age too, and they know, you know, I kind of do talk on the Redskins a lot. And they asked me about the name change too. I'm like, what do y'all want me to say? y'all should be asking yourself, or have me ask you, how do you all feel? Because I can tell you one thing. Let's just get it over with. I can't tell you anything else. So
Jamal, it sounds like for you the name change, like let's just get it over with. For you, it's like it's a beginning, a new beginning for you.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying. Like,
absolutely.
Because your parents have the history and they know the history and been a part of it. So, you know, it's been the name change would be a welcome change for you because it would be a new beginning. I kind of feel the same way, but again, you guys know I can't, like, I'm on board with the name change. I feel like you're going to bring in a whole new generation of fans. I did say last week though that they cannot change the color scheme. Mm-hmm. If you do it, you will lose
You'll lose me.
You're going to lose Steve Thomas. You're going to lose, you guys, the hardcore fan base. So I don't know. I'm like you guys. I'm tired of talking about this. I just want it to happen already.
Yeah.
And but like I said, money talks. And if you want to change anything, then you start messing with people's bottom line, and you're going to change a lot. So
let me go.
That's happening.
Let me go briefly into this trademark stuff because I did publish a quick article on Friday about it.
And you talked to a guy who had a bunch of trademarks, which was interesting.
Yeah, I did. Because I'm me, I did track down the guy who has most of these trademarks and talked to him. I emailed him and then talked to him on the phone. He's very nice. But what he told me, first of all, he told me that this is his hobby, which I said, dude, you've got a hell of a hobby,
Our hobby is doing a podcast. His hobby is filing trademarks.
He said he's got it down. He has it down to 15 minutes, and he can submit these applications in 15 minutes.
Huh.
And it's just a matter of how many times he wants to pay a $250 filing fee, is all. But so the bottom line here is the Redskins will have to trademark a new name. If they don't trademark a new name, everybody else can go produce stuff and not pay them, and that's why you trademark stuff. Okay, we have the Hogsty. If we ever become a massive national audience, like I know we're going to get, at some point we'd have to trademark the name, for example. But we don't. It's pointless now for us. But the Redskins need to do it immediately. They could announce a name today. The rumor has been they're going to announce the name within 24 hours. If they do that, my guess is that they've probably already had their IP lawyer submit a trademark application. We just don't know it because it would just be wholly irresponsible from a legal perspective. But what the guy, by the way, is Martin McCauley, was who I talked to, and we kind of went over the history of some of these things. And the Warriors is trademarked. The Golden State Warriors has Golden State Warriors. There's a whole bunch of people who have trademarked Washington Warriors.
Right.
The only one who hasn't trademarked, which is really odd, is Red Wolves. Washington Red Wolves. Nobody's squatting on that. There are many, like 20 or 30 different versions of the name Red Wolves alone.
Right.
Red space Wolves. Red Wolves is one. Red space Wolf. Red Wolf. Red Wolf is one word. All of those are trademarked. They'd have to fight through some of that. But I don't think that they would announce a name without at least filing a trademark application.
Yeah, and then you put like a trademark pending on the whole name.
Yeah, right. And the problem, of course, is like, you've got Nike and a bunch of other contractors that have to produce, gear and, merchandise. Right. And that you can't just snap your fingers and do that. It's a whole – normally there would be at least a year or 2 years of run up to this from all the business issues.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's just better for everybody if you just announce it and roll the dice a bit, on the business issues.
My prediction is they'll announce it, but you don't have enough time to make new uniforms, and you don't have enough time to – so they'll probably just go with the uniforms they have and put a little patch over it that says the new name, that kind of thing, something simple.
Yeah.
And then you do a full new uniform next year. But, you were talking about Nike, but I was even thinking – EA Games just made Madden 21, and it takes time for them to reskin all these teams and redo all that stuff too.
Well, it's funny you say that.
There's so many groups like that.
We have, as a part of the Hogsty family, a guy who used to work on Madden for EA Sports,
right.
John Worrell from It's Just Business fame. He was not on the show that we just recorded. Otherwise, I was going to ask him that.
I can DM John. We're always talking. So.
What do we all think, though? So, if it's down to Warriors and Red Wolves,
what it sounds like, yeah.
What would everybody prefer? I prefer Redskins.
I'm stuck in the middle. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm coming around on Red Wolves, and that's the thing. It wasn't like it was something that jumped out initially, but I can see the color schemes that people are coming up with. But the only issue that I have with Red Wolves is the color schemes that people have put out there. And Red Wolves in itself, the name is okay. Mm-hmm. It's nothing spectacular. But the color schemes that people have been putting out there that's actually been getting us in trouble is actually speaks to what Rob said. They get so carried away with, these great designs that looks really good, but they stray away from the burgundy and gold.
Yeah.
And like you're doing this for the notoriety online and your graphics. You should be hired. The way they produce this stuff is really good, but you got to pay attention to the important nature of the name change and the brand change. Stay close to this burgundy and gold color scheme, but that's the only reason why I would lean Warriors over Red Wolves, because people can get distracted from the actual point of this whole thing, and you need to stay true to your fan base in some regard, and they get straight away from the color scheme.
I think that's a fair point, Jamal. And the thing is, no matter which name you choose, that can happen. If they go Warriors, you see a lot of people trying to do like camouflage uniforms and shit like that, which look, Army. I get it when Army does that in college football, but it's kind of tacky. Like outside of that. Same with like when people make the American flag helmets in college football for every team. Like I get over that really quickly myself. So, like you can do whatever name you want and change the colors however you want in the end, because that's it's design, it's creative. But I'm with you. Like I see these ones where people are making like all black uniforms, all white uniforms, and first off, you're taking the only reason you want Red Wolves is to keep red. Like, that's the whole point of the name. I lean Red Wolves. I'm fine with both. I think both will be decent enough names. Both sound better to me than Red Tails, which I understand why people like Red Tails. Alabama's 700 miles away.
Is that a Tuskegee Airmen reference, I
Yes.
assume, Red Tails?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a decent idea.
It's a good idea, but again, where is Alabama and where is Washington, D.C.?
Where's a Red Wolf? Is a Red Wolf in D.C.?
Well, I think it could be argued that Alabama is in Ashburn right now. We got
that is true.
That's a good point.
Steve, to answer your question, Red Wolves are indigenous to the entire Northeast.
Look, but my point is none of these things are DC-centric.
No.
If you're going to have a DC-centric name, it would be the senators or the presidents or the monuments or something like that. None of these names.
The Wizards aren't either, so.
Yeah.
No. So I don't think it has to be,
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm wearing a Washington Valor shirt right now. Valor was pretty much
You're the one.
generic. Yeah. Same with Defenders or, a lot of these names. You look at some sports teams' names, and there's some weird ones locally. The Old Glory is the rugby team, which I get why that name came, they came up with that, but, there's some weird names out there.
If you put a water pistol to my head and make me choose, I'd pick Red Wolves because I think it sounds most like Redskins.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say. I would lean more Red Wolves.
It could fit in the song easier because it's 2 syllables.
You could keep my guitar version of HTTR. We could keep playing it.
Right.
We can keep playing it anyway until they bust me on copyright violations.
It's closest to Redskins, 1, and then 2, it just flows. I feel like Washington Warriors, it doesn't really, I don't know, it just don't sit right with me, but you could keep the color scheme with the Red Wolves as your, name and logo going forward. Some of the designs I've seen are a little bit too collegey with the paw prints on the shoulder pads.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, I think I would be more inclined to lean towards Red Wolves.
Now, one of the other things that Macaulay told me, and he was not an IP lawyer, by the way, and I am an attorney, but I'm not a licensed IP attorney either. He told me that the Golden State Warriors have got the word Warriors locked up. Warriors all alone. Now, I don't think he was right. I did look through the trademarks and didn't see it the way he saw it. So I don't think he's right about that, but he seemed to think that for whatever that's worth. But I don't think if you do Warriors, I think the Redskins will always play second fiddle to the Golden State Warriors. And I just don't. I'd rather have the
you set yourself in that stratosphere with the championships and the recent success that they've had.
Right.
And then on top of that, I mean, I don't want to pay nobody for the name Warriors. I think you said it's already trademarked. Red Wolves is not. I would go the route where I would keep as much money in my pocket as possible.
Well, although I'm not, if you're talking about chump change compared to, the money they're going to lose by not changing the name. If they have to throw somebody $10,000, they can find that in couch cushions. It wouldn't be, the paying the IP lawyers alone will be more than that.
I do remember. When one of these other guys copyrighted Warriors a few years ago, after Dan Snyder lost the copyright,
There's six or seven people that all have claims on Washington Warriors.
Right, but I remember one of these guys saying he wanted to sell it to the team for something like $1 million. Like
that's never going to happen ever.
Yeah, but
I'm talking minor, small potato money is the only thing they're going to. Look, Washington. If there's one thing I know about the Redskins from my very brief dealings with the stadium and a couple other things, they're going to go scorched earth.
Right.
The Redskins are bullies when it comes to business, and they're never going to just sit down and go, here you go. Yeah, we're going to pay you. They're going to go all out to just take it.
They'd rather spend more money on the lawsuit than,
Dan Snyder is
I definitely got a real 2-year introduction into that.
That's fair.
I would have to say that's a factual statement. Right?
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you guys my experience with the stadium stuff. I can't, but I mean, it was a long time ago, and I was dealing with it in another capacity other than my legal capacity. But it was just,
But
they're not going to.
Technically, that was pre-Snyder, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's still.
I know.
It's
still the NFL and still the Redskins.
Jack Kent Cooke wasn't exactly a man of the people, even though he had a reputation like that because he won.
Right.
He was kind of the opposite of that.
Right.
I think it's funny because Rick Snyder mentioned that just about the Ken Cook guy. He said that just because he won championships, people saw him in a positive light, but he wasn't that type of person.
No. He was a flawed man. Rick's told me some interesting stories about him offline that I won't repeat since they're his stories to tell.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the stadium, so there was some stadium news related to this name stuff. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, who's our delegate to Congress. So she doesn't have full congressional voting rights, obviously. She wrote that, or she has said that if the Redskins change their name, she'll introduce a bill to give them the land for RFK Stadium, and she thinks it could get done in 6 months. And then you had Vincent Gray, who's my representative here in Ward 7, which consists of RFK campus, partly. He was saying that he thinks the RFK thing is dead in the water, that the train's left the station on that, it's too late. Now, I don't trust Vincent Gray on anything because he was a crap mayor and he's a crap representative. So, take that for what you will. Steve, we did a poll on the whole name situation. Why don't we do that and then we can talk about the stadium stuff. If there's really
I
didn't.
Talk about. Sorry to go backwards, but I wanted to do this before we kind of lose the topic. The poll this week, Alex proposed to do the worst names. I didn't. I ignored your idea. Sorry, I didn't.
It's all right.
Okay, so that's this week's poll is: how would you feel about a name change? Wait, let me back up. In case you slept through the past week, the Redskins might change the team's nickname. How do you feel about a change right now? Right now, meaning not when it happens, not a year ago. Right at this moment, how do you feel? The 4 choices were: I'm glad it needs to change. I don't want it to change, but I can live with it. I hate it, but I'm reluctantly still here. And if it changes, I'm out. So those are the categories. And as we do every week, want to see what everybody thinks about this and what you think the fans think. So let's start with Rob this week. Rob, what do you think about the poll?
It's a necessary poll. I think that the fans, largely in part, they're resistant to the name change. They hate it. I think that was the last option that you gave.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say majority said the last option.
The last option was if it changes, I'm out.
Yeah.
Is that the one? Okay. All right. Alex?
Well, so I'm going to guess the fans are probably in the disappointed, but what was that? How did you phrase that second one?
I don't want it, but I can live with it.
Yeah, I think that's probably where fans are, at least Twitter fans, just judging by the reactions of what I'm seeing on social media. I want to say I'm actually glad, but it's not in that sense. It's more I'm glad because this thing is finally moving on and it's over, and this debate that we've been having on the show for 5 years and that's been going on in the Redskins world for 30 years, like, we're moving forward with this situation finally.
My only regret is we weren't able to get Mike Wise on the show and allow me to run intellectual circles around him.
Well, that wouldn't be hard.
Because I did try to get him on the show at one point in time.
I told you my story about running into him once at my job, right?
No.
He was just such a miserable person.
That's a shock. Jamal, what do you think?
So it's actually the same answer as Alex. It's literally how he explained it too, in terms of I'm glad in a relief sort of way. Just ready to move past this, but I also think the fans are reluctant, but they rather have the name, but I mean they just got to deal with the new name change and all that type of stuff. So it's literally the same answer.
I think we all are going to have to go through some kind of stage of acceptance at some point, and that's kind of everyone's in different stages of it, you know.
Well, you guys know how much I love change.
Yeah. Well,
and one thing's for sure, like people gotta not understand. It's not that. It's just an awareness mode where you gotta realize that it's okay to be upset in terms of in terms of not liking anything that's impending. And that's gonna be the case for any type of franchise that's been around for a long period of time.
It's okay for people to have feelings, Jamal. Is that kind of?
You know what? I feel like that's what I was trying to say, but I couldn't spit it out. So that sounds about right, Alex.
So by a vote of 36%, and by the way, we got a decent amount of votes on this one, so thanks to everybody who voted. We didn't get a ton of comments, weirdly. I thought this would be a big comment one, but it wasn't, which is odd. But by a vote of 36%, don't want it but can live with it won. And then 33%, second place, I hate it, but I'm still here. That's me for now. That's where I would fall. 23% was I'm glad it needs to change. That's the John Morals of the world, you know, who thinks thought it needed to change. And then 7% of you out there said if it changes, I'm out. Now, if we did it again with a color scheme change, like Rob's been saying, that might be different, but that's how the fans think right now. At least the Twitter fans think right now.
Well, whenever they finally announce the name, I'm sure we'll do a poll just saying, what do you think of the new name? And we'll see a different number set up there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And same with whenever they change the colors and the uniform and the logo.
Yeah.
Like, that 7% will probably only grow. Like, it's not going to get smaller.
Yeah.
Because I don't see... I don't see them doing anything, Steve, that could ever make you happy in any of those situations.
No, but there's some things I could live with.
Right.
You know, and because like I've said before, I mean, you guys are all in the DC area. I'm not in the DC area.
Right.
You know, I live there, but I've lived if you name a place, I've probably lived there. I mean, I don't have any geographic connections to really anything. I have emotional connections to the team of my childhood, you know, and if you just erase that, that's when you lose me, you know, and so it's important to me to keep the history. It's don't do something dumb like erase the name out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and off the record, but if you do that, you're going to lose me.
See, I don't think they would take it out of the Hall of Fame. Now, there's no precedent for this, but it's not like guys who went in as the Oilers are now in there as the Titans, or
right, exactly.
You know, like you don't see that kind of thing happening.
But you have to bow down before the altar of political correctness, Alex, which really bugs me. But we'll see. But point is, I've made my point enough. You know, we need to move on.
Sure. All right. Why don't we do that then? I want to talk about a topic Rob kind of brought here that I thought was interesting. The highlights we are seeing on social media, specifically, you brought up the Antonio Gandy Golden catch that I think was, yesterday that came out? And, we're in this weird quarantine situation, so we can't all go to camp and watch guys play and get video from there. Seeing all these highlights... We don't know that
yet, by the way. By the way, training camp, I did ask the Redskins about training camp. They said we don't know anything yet. The NFL will dictate.
Right, and the NFL has put out some stuff, and it's basically...
But they haven't. Yeah, it's going to be different.
It's going to be different. I don't know if we'll get to go like we usually do and get press passes. Because things are restricted. Usually, Rob, Jamal and I usually go at least for a couple days, or whoever else was. When Robbie was here, he would go for like straight weeks at a time.
That sound like him.
Yeah, he did some like Periscope things like on the sidewalk.
That was back when he was young and single. But anyway, I don't know if that'll happen this year because of everything going on. But so you brought this whole thing with these cool videos we're just kind of seeing on social media. What did you think of that catch? Because that's one you first brought up. And I want to ask you about all the stuff Chase Young's putting out, all the stuff Dwayne's putting out. Like, how much are you able to really see in some of these as a player?
I think it depends on the player for the most part. For instance, I would approve of what Dwayne Haskins has put out because we've seen a body change, we've seen a bit of a throwing motion change.
Yeah,
we've seen, so that gives you something to, oh my God, he's improving his game. That gives you something to look forward to. When I look at as Maverick runs in here right now.
Oh yeah.
When I look
Mavericks are fifth member of the
right.
team.
And when I look at Gandy Golden's catch, I for some reason it was a great catch, but I start thinking of Terrell Pryor, and I'm like, I don't want to see this shit. Like, do this on somebody who matters. Who was the DB? Like, I automatically went into defense mode when it was a great play, and at least he's getting extra work in. His release looked better, but immediately, like I said, my mind went to Terrell Pryor.
What did you see in Haskins' release that looked better to you?
Well, for one, to me, it looks a bit quicker, like a bit snappier at the top. He looks more confident in what he's doing, like in throwing. And granted, it's not the offense that he's supposed to be in. He's just throwing routes. Right. But he looks more confident and more arrogant in his throws. And I kind of like that from my quarterback. Like when you're about to drop a dime, you just give him a little flick of the wrist. And just that little bit. And you like, I know I got it. Like, when you look at the film or when you watched him play during the season, he had some great moments.
Sure.
But for the most part, it kind of looked like, I think this is right. Do it. You know what I mean? There was kind of just a panic to it, I would say. But now some of that stuff, he looks more confident. Like I said, he has lost a lot of weight.
Oh, his face, if you put his rookie picture and his picture this year next to each other, he almost looks like a different person with how much baby fat he's lost. And it is that, I know baby fat's not the right word, but that rookie baby fat that everyone seems to have when they come in.
What it is.
He looks a lot more cut, there's for sure.
Yeah.
The Gandy Golden catch, great catch. Looked like something Odell Beckham would have done. Obviously it's just practice. I don't know how much it means. Now, if you watch Gandy Golden's film, which I did, that quarterback he had at Liberty is just awful. And was constantly putting him in positions where he had to make those catches because the ball was made short. Yeah. Oh, I know, John. I know you watch it too, Jamal. It was driving me crazy watching this poor kid try to go all crazy.
What did you say his nickname was? Scat Gun or something?
Buckshot.
Even
Buckshot Calvin was the guy's name. Apparently, he was a fairly renowned.
In that area and hit somebody.
Apparently, that was a renowned quarterback by Liberty standards, but he constantly put Gandy Golden in just the worst position ever, which is why a lot of those one-handed catches had to be made. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, Dwayne Haskins will do much better at that.
I mean, look, Haskins didn't have the best completion percentage last year, but in college, I know
better than Steven Buckshot Calvert, no matter what.
Yeah. And in college, he had decent numbers in terms of percentages. So
he had outstanding numbers, not decent numbers.
But what is it? Whatever you do in college, drop 10% or something.
But the thing about Haskins in college was his deep ball wasn't great.
No,
a lot of those, and they were playing a lot of teams where the guys like Terry McLaurin are streaking wide open. Mm-hmm. That's why it's just tougher to get a high completion percentage in the NFL.
Yeah.
Understandably so.
Yeah. But when I watched that AGG catch, I'm with you. Like, I don't know who that corner was. Like, we assume it's Haskins on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably a pro level corner, but it could have been anybody.
I'm not gonna lie to you, because I don't know if it was in the whole clip. I may be wrong. I saw a piece of it because I really didn't want to watch it because I just knew like it was my thought process was literally as Rob's. I can't stand it. Like I'm cool with the workout videos, but those the catches that you see or stuff like that, I'm like, okay, well. This is training camp stuff. This is one-on-ones and no uniforms, all that stuff. Anyway, I saw that they were talking to kids earlier in some type of video, like it was high schoolers or something like that. I don't know. But my assumption is, or possibility is, these could be people that aren't even pro level athletes. Sure. Like this could have been a college kid. This could have been a high school kid that just wanted to check AGG and they just put the video out there because AGG looked good. So. That's all I was getting at. I saw there was some kids out there on the field that they were working out with for a little bit.
Well, how many times have you been at training camp and you see some guy, like some fifth string tight end, just lighting it up. And then you look and he's like, oh, he's going against the practice squad guys too. So it like the level of talent is, that.
No, it matters.
It does. And I know in camp now, like guys aren't really allowed to hit and all that kind of stuff anyway. But it is tricky. There's one thing that always happens every training camp too with running backs, where there's one like bottom of the roster depth chart running back.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, who?
No, please get started.
Everyone gets excited about him,
started.
but Rob, maybe it's not an official thing.
Marcus
Is there one guy who
Mason
guys
had
are
a
kind of allowed to
cult-like
hit?
Following.
Marcus Mason, what?
He had a cult-like following for some reason, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you like? What are you thinking?"
That's crazy. I was a fan of Marcus Mason.
Marcus Mason,
Colt Brennan,
Colt, yeah,
Antonio
Mix, Marco Mitchell, yeah.
Okay,
I may have made a Colt of Colt shirt for our website.
Game with against the Jets for Colt Brennan that helped a lot of people.
Yeah,
I just watched this whole Gandy Golden clip. There are literally 10-year-olds on the field.
Yeah, all right. So I know I wasn't tripping.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like I said, I just get Terrell Pryor vibes because he did all of that on social media,
right?
And then got in the game and turned into Gator arms. Like I don't want to see all that. But I do want to. It's funny, like I said, because I do want to see those things from our quarterback and the progress he's made. But.
Well, I will say on Pryor, I remember when he was here for that year, every practice, all he did was just stand by the jugs machine. And I get it, but at the same time, trying to catch a ball just standing there with a jugs machine, not the same thing as running and catching. I don't see the point of, like, oh, yeah, he catches 200 balls a day there. You're just standing there, man.
I mean, look,
I could stand there and catch a ball from a jugs machine. That's not hard.
I thought Gandy Golden ran decent routes in college. I don't think he has a lot of acceleration and burst. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those one-handed catches that he was making were against very substandard corners.
Yeah.
Who also didn't have his catch radius and his leaping ability. I don't think we're going to see that kind of thing from him in the pros. I think Gandy Golden, truthfully, is probably a possession receiver in the pros. Is what my impression of his college film was. This is an NFL possession receiver.
I get more of a Josh Jackson vibe than
his career would be a success if he becomes a red zone nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
He's not going to break the 50, 60 yarders. He's not going to take a slant to the house. But if he can become a matchup nightmare in the red zone, then his career will be a success.
Well, he's got the height. I mean, he's
the leaping ability. Yeah, he got the hand strength, the hand size.
Yeah.
I just want to know how 10-year-olds got on a field with Dwayne Haskins. Mainly.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some semblance of, you do something similar to what you did with Jordan Reed, where AGG is the inside guy running the choice routes.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And then you have, other guys, running other routes, Sims and McLaurin. But just a height matchup, you want him inside versus a safety or a linebacker. I wouldn't put him on a corner. A corner has most corners have the ability to make the move to get underneath or, punch the ball out. I want him on a guy with a similar body type almost and similar foot speed.
Yeah. I do think he has good hands, though. I couldn't find him a single drop on him in all the film. Jamal, did you see any drops when you watched this film?
No drops. To be honest with you, it looked like it in his realm of competition. He looked like he was pretty difficult to cover. Let's put it that way.
Oh, well, there's no doubt about it. He was difficult, but I just couldn't
get drafted from that level. You better be a monster.
Yeah,
put up good numbers.
Yeah. I just couldn't get past the fact that it was obvious that the highlight reel catches were because of the quarterback, and he was able to do it because the corners, the DBs he was playing against, were just flat out substandard and not worth his time.
Well, I mean, I'm with Robert there, man. Like, you're a small school guy. I'm always partial to these mid-major small school guys because I think they come in feeling like they have to prove something more often.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about.
I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the people from the HBCUs. Because nowadays, like when I can't remember for the life of me, and it kind of bothers me. The guy who went to Pittsburgh from Bowie State, like that was one of my. He wasn't like literally my favorite player, but I was always rooting for him because like he was a guy who had success in the NFL, And these guys, when you're really good at the HBCU level, like it speaks to how like Tariq Cohen, these type of players, when you have that type of talent at these levels, you know how good you can really be in the pros because it's a different standard, and like that's the type of drive that helps these guys.
Talking about Isaac Redman.
Yes, Isaac Redman.
I think I think what Jamal's trying to say is that, like, we've all went to high school with guys or played ball with guys or known guys who had the talent to be at a Division I, but they didn't get recruited for whatever reason, and they go to HBCUs. So there is a bigger talent pool. Like, there's real talent down there or in those schools at those HBCUs, but and it takes something different to stand out amongst that talent. I think that's what you're trying to say, Jamal.
Yeah, you spot on.
I always wonder
Williams
how
guy knows it better than ever anybody about that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I always kind of get. I always wonder about how those guys go about not getting scouted or not getting found so often.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, because
why?
Yeah.
Because just from a standpoint of, you know, like for me, I was a late bloomer.
Right.
Just in some people's eyes, I didn't make it to varsity until my midway through my junior year, and so then I was rotating as a backup. But I had 1 year of varsity to prove myself, so I could have slipped under the cracks had it not been for a good coaching staff. I could have slipped through the cracks if it not been for a good coaching staff, and then for TCU not going to recruit or scout Frank Oakham. And we just happened to play him that game, and I went off, and then that's when I started getting approached by teams because a lot of teams were there to watch Big Frank,
right?
And then, you know, so it happens.
So you weren't on anybody's radar or scope at all until
no. I had, like Jamal said, I had HBCUs. I had Southern. I had what is it? I had Alcorn. I had small schools, like small HBCUs. And then,
so you would have been getting scouted by HBCUs when Doug was still at what was the school he was coaching at that point, right? Or that might be a few years ago.
Grambling.
Yeah, Grambling.
Yep. I took a visit to Grambling.
You did? Okay.
Yep. But one of the reasons I didn't go to Grambling because I knew I wasn't gonna get any work done. So
okay.
I wasn't gonna go to class.
Oh, that's funny.
But that, like I said, that's how it got slipped through the cracks because, you know, some teams, some scouts will go watch a certain player and you don't have a good game that game, but you are a really good player.
Sure.
And you're just a late bloomer. So, it happens, man.
Yeah. I mean,
same way it happens in the NFL. We see that majority of the league, we see majority of the league is made up of undrafted late round guys.
Right.
So.
Well,
I'm a late bloomer myself. I'm still waiting on the call. It's going to happen someday.
I mean, I kind of like I look at a guy like Alfred Morris, who he came from a small mid-major school.
Yep.
What was he? A 6th-round pick and very productive for 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see it all the time, like you said.
Got in the right scheme.
Yep.
Drafted to the right scheme. Yeah.
I mean, look, this started with Gandy Golden, and he's obviously one of those guys. He ended up at Liberty. You know, he has all the physical traits. He's not fast by NFL standards, but he's a guy who can carve out a role. I think he's obviously very smart. Isn't he the Rubik's Cube guy?
Yeah, he's like a puzzle genius guy.
Yeah, had very high grades and all that, so he's clearly smart. Hopefully he works hard. I think he probably will because he's had to prove himself, time and time again. So I just think his physical profile in terms of his speed and all that is probably going to hold him back.
Yeah.
That's his downside.
Here's the question though. Do you play him? Do you play him at the X or the Z? Like, you don't play him outside, maybe in my opinion. But, do they see him as one of those outside guys?
I'm kind of wondering if he may be a slot guy.
I honestly would let him play amongst the linebackers and the safeties. I would,
because I think his ability to accelerate holds him back, and if you've got that extra step, that'll help. And then the slot corners are typically smaller, shorter. They're not as physically imposing. That might be the optimal matchup for him. And you've got McLaurin out there with his burn and speed on the side, and Harmon, and so I think the slot is probably his spot.
With the team lacking
but then
true tight
Sims
end.
wouldn't be on the field.
I'm not saying. I mean, they'll have to may the best man win.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's going to be the starting slot guy. I'm saying if I was a coach, that'd probably be where I'm thinking is this guy's a slot receiver for us.
I see him as kind of what you were saying initially. I see him as a situational. He's a red zone guy. You put him in when you get inside the 20, and pull out Sims or maybe Harmon. Some of these smaller guys.
And they need a guy like that because I don't think Thaddeus Moss is going to be that guy. I know the fans love him because of his dad. Have you really watched this film, man? I mean, you tell me.
Listen, I have, and I will not sit up here and say he's Antonio Gates or somebody. You're not going to get that from me. But what I do think is he'll ride the coattails, and he'll try to find out what he's good at, who he is. I think between year 2 and 3, I think you'll start to see something.
I see him more like a traditional Chris Cooley type tight end, where he'll find open space and move the chains. That's Cooley made a great career doing that.
He's not Jordan Reed.
No,
let's put it.
No, we don't have a Jordan Reed.
Going with it, I don't think he's Jordan Reed at all.
Yeah, as long as we temper our expectations.
That's where I think AGG could kind of come in. I think he can be kind of more of a joker wide receiver instead of a joker tight end.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. Well, let's move on because we're about 40 minutes in. We got to talk about the defensive end positions. Obviously, it's going to be a big part of this defense this year. You got 3 first-rounders at defensive end all competing for time now. We got the veteran Ryan Kerrigan. We're going to have Sweat and Young. I think those are going to be the big feature parts of this discussion here. And then we got some interesting depth guys to talk about as well. I want to start with the senior, the team captain, Ryan Kerrigan, because he is the captain. He's been here forever, and I think he deserves to be who we start with. Rob, last week you said that you could kind of see Kerrigan walking away in a year or two. He's getting up there. He was drafted a year after you were, I think.
Yeah.
So you got to play with him. You got to know him pretty well, I bet. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about his personality, though. Stuff that we as fans probably didn't get to see because he was always kind of a more quiet guy. He was never the vocal leader, and yet now he's kind of a captain.
Yeah, you're not really gonna get the vocal, or the vocality from him. He's not that type of rah-rah guy. He's a quiet lead by example type of guy. He is a jokester, so he will prank you and joke with you and all that stuff, and he's just a real cool laid back guy. But I think his intensity is what set him apart when I was there. Was that he was quiet, but he was intense in situations that calls for it, obviously like practice games. His motors would really set him apart as he gets up there in age. I'm thinking that he may just walk away because he's always wanted more, if that makes sense. Like this, he doesn't really need football. He always felt like he didn't. So, he always thought outside the box, just from knowing him. He's always been a guy who's thought outside the box. So I could see a situation where he, walks away after this year or, maybe hangs on another year after this, but then he just walks away earlier than expected.
I'm really excited about seeing him not have to worry about being in coverage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think we all are.
He's probably excited to not be in coverage because it was crazy.
It's not his thing, know. I always thought, one, that's what he did at Purdue was defensive ends, and I always thought they've been misusing this guy, just chronically misusing an elite level talent for all these years. And this was kind of sad to see his whole career kind of get not wasted, but misused for a decade, really sad. And I'm glad to see at least he goes out, whenever that is in the right position as a pass rusher like he should be. So I'm excited to see what he does this year.
Well, I mean, my concern with him has always been one thing, and that's that he's all right. He's not a speed rusher. He wasn't Brian Arakpo, but he was a good, strong bull rusher. But he always seemed to struggle with stopping the run. In my mind,
did you watch Arakpo play?
Yeah.
Rack was not a speed.
Well, he would always go around the edge.
He was a bull rusher. Rack was definitely, he was a one move, he was a one trick pony.
I always thought of Arakpo as a speed around go around the outside of the left tackle guy.
This is why we have the pro on the show, Alex.
I would never. I'm sorry. Since we're on Arakpo, I will never forget. I will never forget in 2014 when they played the Giants on Thursday Night Football. This man mic'd up, told his coach as they was getting crushed by Eli. He told him, "Man, look, coach, we doing the best we can. But as soon as they it was in that moment because they were snapping the ball and Arakpo couldn't get there. Like nobody could get there in like the 3 seconds or however much time it took. Which is there's nothing wrong with it. It's just off the strength of hearing him plead to his coach like, Coach, we can't we're trying, we can't get there. Arakpo's a different story. I just had to throw that story out there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was definitely a power rusher. Like you said though, Alex said he's Kerrigan's pretty much kind of a one-trick pony. Like, you know what you're going to get. And it works to his credit, and it has worked over the course of his career. But as you start to see a more mobile quarterback, now you're seeing a more mobile pass rush in the Chase Youngs and the Monta Sweats, the guys that are running the 4.4s and 4.3s and all that stuff.
Yeah,
so
if a guy gets outside the pocket, and especially if he goes left, Kerrigan ain't getting to him anymore.
No, I've seen way too many teams run right at Ryan Kerrigan's side.
Well, all you gotta do is run a RPO or a read option. Mm-hmm. That'll get you past him in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been my concern with him is even though I think he is a good rusher, trying to get to the quarterback in the pocket.
Listen, you don't get to 91 sacks without being, or 90 sacks without being an elite pass rusher.
Right.
I mean, he is.
Well, you guys know how I feel about Kerrigan.
Yeah. Jamal's not a fan of Kerrigan's game.
Yeah, I feel like
you can't argue with the facts.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing with me. So when I say first off, I tell Steve and Alex all the time, I don't think he's bad. I think he's overrated. A lot of Redskins fans in themselves would say he's underrated, but that's where the confusion comes in between this whole thing. Like Kerrigan is a B guy. He's just consistently a B guy. He's never had bad, like terrible sprouts or terrible things, but he's never been anything better than good. And that's the thing that kind of gets to me. It's like you can have good, but where are you going to get that A? Where are you going to get that A player from to help him out? He's never had that help.
So you are half right. Because in a sense, he is overrated just from a standpoint of you've never seen him against the left tackle. Sure. He's always going against the right tackle. So they put him in those positions to win because they obviously your player, you want to put him in a position to win.
And he's got the hearing thing, which and he's got a couple other issues. Yeah.
But the reason I say you're half right is because you cannot argue production.
Yeah,
like you just
got 90 sacks.
Production, 90 sacks. Like you can't argue production.
So all right. So here's other things that kind of gets to me. When it was 2016, and this is just one season. I'll bring out other seasons too. But in 2016, there was one season where I think he had double-digit sacks that year, but he didn't have any sacks in the second half of a football game. And that one thing in itself for me is like the pressure moments or the guys that you bought, well, the reason why you bought Chase Young in. Like when you bring Chase Young in, you asking him to be a playmaker, you're asking him to be that dominant player. When people talk about Ryan Kerrigan and what he's done for a team, that's something that kind of bothers me. It's like, how can you say somebody is so great at something or so elite at something, but he can't even he goes a whole season without having a second half sack. That's the first thing. But the other things that I'll be quick with it because I'm interested in hearing you. But the other things that bothers me is there are periods in a season where he has went 4 or 5 around that range, 4 to 5 games, maybe 6 games without even having a sack. Like there's some where he didn't even have a stat on the board, and it's like how can you keep? And then all of a sudden he'll come around with like 10 sacks later on. It's like, where did that come from? Like you go a whole period of a season without even touching the quarterback. Well, not touching it. I'm exaggerating there, but you don't sack the quarterback. and then all of a sudden, like people say, "You're good. See, look at these numbers. He's good." It's the same thing that bothered me with Montez Sweat last year. He went before the last 4 games of the season. He had like a 2.5 sacks or 1.5 sacks, and he finishes with 7. And people say he had a great season. No, he didn't.
All right, so look, your first point, the thing about you said he had a sack in the first half, nothing in the second half. It's the NFL. Teams adjust. Mm-hmm. They are paid to adjust. So did you get a chance to see who was blocking him? Was he being chipped by a defensive end? By a running back. Because I can tell you, if you had a couple sacks in the first half and they come out second half, they've been in the locker room talking about somebody needs to help our right tackle, and we need to do things to neutralize Ryan Kerrigan because he's killing us in the first half. So that's my first point is adjustments. Teams are paid. They are paid to make adjustments.
Yep.
And then the going 5-6 games without a sack, it's very hard to get to the quarterback in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Especially depending. So now you got to think about who he was playing against, the scheme type. Did they do things to neutralize Ryan? Did they slide the offensive line that way? Did they know that he was a threat because he was coming off big games? So, okay, everything we need to be a 3-step drop. We need to roll away from him. Let's double team and chip. Like, let's cut block. Like, and then there are other ways to affect the quarterback other than sack. So,
sure. Pressures. I understand.
Hurries. Yeah. How many times have Ryan almost got there and didn't, but it was a bad throw, or so it's a lot of other factors that go into that. Like, you can't just roll just because you put up 10-12 don't mean you can roll out every game.
I mean,
and one more thing, Steve. And what you're saying, I don't disagree with, because I always take these things into account. I wish I could talk to you about 2016. I don't remember. That's just something that I always carry with me. I can't tell you anything more about what I remember from 2016, but what I will add on is not a disagreement. It's me adding on. This is why I said, like, he's needed an A player on the opposite side of him for a long time, because when Preston Smith was here, he was like, we knew he had something in him, but we couldn't get it out of him. Because
they were the same type of players.
Right.
You got 2 power rushers coming off the edge. That's no good for your defense. You need a speed rusher and a power rusher. You combine the 2. One is more adept at playing the run. The other is more adept at getting after the quarterback.
Well, you also had an issue with the defensive line those years, and they never had anyone pushing up the center to keep the quarterback from stepping up.
And then you throw in Minuski, so that's enough there.
Yeah, so that's all.
Well, Hazlitt, Minuski, and who's the guy in between?
Barry.
Yeah.
So
the guy who never won.
Like, he was overrated from our fan base, overrated in our fan base, and a lot of people felt he was underrated within our fan base, and that's where I was getting. He always needed somebody opposite side of him, but he wasn't as good as people said he was, and those are my reasons why. So that's all. He really just needed. He needed help. He needed help.
Jamal and I have disagreed on Ryan Kerrigan, and that's fine. But where I do kind of see his point is, from a fan's perspective watching the games, it does seem like at times he's gone long periods of time in the season and not made an impact. And it's probably for the reasons you're suggesting. They're adjusting to him and all that. But I think that's where Jamal's going with it. I mean, you speak up, Jamal, but it does seem like there's been periods where we wonder where the hell's Ryan Kerrigan?
Well,
where is he?
Keep in mind, most of his career, he's the best guy.
There's been periods where we wonder where the whole team is.
Yeah.
True. I mean, and look, Dick Butkus probably went a few games without a sack, I'm sure, and so it happens to everybody. I mean, I get it, but it does seem like at times Ryan Kerrigan's kind of disappeared, for parts of the season.
Okay, well, let's move on to these other guys here. We got Chase Young. Obviously, he's going to be kind of the big focus for this defense going forward, because number 2 pick, elite-looking talent, at least when you watch what he did in college and look at what his measurables could be. Like, this guy could be the cornerstone of this defense for the next decade if everything goes right. What are you guys thinking of him? I kind of look at him and he looks, maybe it's just because, relative to other guys, he looks smaller than most of these other defensive ends we got.
Well, he's 6'5", 264. That's what he's listed at.
Yeah, which is the same size. He just looks more cut, I guess, is the difference. Kerrigan always looks like just a big old thing of muscle versus Young, who looks incredibly athletic. So, I mean, he's going to be your speed guy that you're talking about, right, Rob? So,
Yep.
Do you just put him on the left end the whole time, or on the left tackle the whole time, and just let him play?
Just let him play. And like I said, I think a lot of other guys are going to feed off of the chaos he brings.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see quarterbacks stepping right into Payne and Allen.
Right.
You'll see, guys trying to get away from Young, so they run right into Kerrigan or Sweat. So, he's just going to bring – when I think of Chase Young, I think of chaos and guys trying to figure out how the hell to get away from him and how to adjust to him. And I think the unit that's going to honestly see the biggest impact from his presence and having that elite pass rush on the side will be our DBs, in which that's a unit that I think we could improve.
Sure.
We got one stalwart guy, but
they need help.
Yes, they do.
I've really wondered if Chase Young actually is a speed rusher. He didn't run a 40 time at the combine. There was no Ohio State Pro Day at all. The rumors were always that his 40 time was in the 4.9 range, which is why he didn't want to run it at the combine, because it would only hurt him. So and there's a difference between 40 time and burst right at the line, and I understand that. And so maybe he's one of these guys that has a lot of burst and he just can't accelerate to that top speed. Maybe that's what it is. I think he's more than just a speed rusher, though. I mean, he has the potential to have it all. Yeah, he has the potential to have it all. And I died on the mantle of Isaiah Simmons before the draft. I mean, everyone won't let me forget that. But I never disliked Chase Young, and I always thought he's a guy. I think he needs a couple years of pro coaching, but he can get to the point where he has every move and a physical advantage over everybody, and I think his 40 time, probably was going to suck, comparatively speaking. But I think if you watch his film, he's got more burst than you might think. He just can't reach the top speed, I think, is the deal with him.
Burst and motor. There were a few plays just from watching the film, a lot of plays actually, just from watching the film where he was running guys down who got past the line of scrimmage. He didn't just give up. We've come across guys like that,
sure.
i.e. Albert, who just laid down on the ground and whatever. But he definitely has the motor, and I think, like you said, that 40 time may not translate into 4.4 and all that stuff, but he does have the acceleration, as we saw through his drills, and we were talking about guys working out earlier. So he posted a couple of drills where he was getting off the line, and I think he's going to be more comfortable in the 2-point stance, honestly.
You think
my
so?
real only fear about him, it's not really a fear, I guess. One thing, if I was a coach, I'd be wary of. He's from DC. I don't know what kind of people he has around him, if it's good people, bad people, or what. But guys who are home and stay home, if they've had the wrong influences, and it doesn't look like he does. He looks like he's had a solid home life and all of that. But I don't know. And so that would be, if I was a coach, I would make sure Doug Williams or somebody talks to him about managing the people around him to keep him out of trouble, because he's home.
Well,
I
was going to say, we got a bunch of guys who are apparently from D.C. now on this roster.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
So you need to talk to them first.
Yeah. Dwayne and, the safety we just signed.
John Allen. You in the area.
Yeah, John
Allen, yeah.
Well, and again, some of these guys, they're from the area. They're really like suburban kids. Like John grew up in Ashburn, man.
Chase is a suburban kid. He's from Upper Marlboro.
Yeah.
He's lived down the street.
I guess Chase is the closest to DC than any of them.
I'm not even saying I'm worried about it. I'm just saying that would be in my mind if I was a player development guy, especially a guy like that. He's got a lot of money. Sure. He's got millions. He's going to have everybody under the sun asking him for things. Somebody's got to help him manage his process, and Doug Williams is probably the guy.
I'll say this too, though, being from this area and having made it as far as he did, the pitfalls that come with this area. So my thing with all the players, like getting in trouble, is one thing. Like having the people around who are negative influences and stuff, like that's one thing to me. I don't think that's going to be an issue with him. My issue what scares me more than anything is the nightlife here.
Sure.
Cool.
Because it's like an indoctrinate. It's a process you have to go through as a rookie. And that's how I was introduced. It was like, you're a rookie. You're going to do all these things we ask. You're going to get us a limo. You're going to get us girls. You're going to get us this. And you're going to buy us bottles at this club. And I'm like, I don't go out. I'm married. And no, F that. This is what rookies do. So, like, to me, that's what scares me more than anything. And it's all things that all NFL players have been through, whatever. But to me, that, like Fred Davis, that was was the issue. And so you wonder why guys can't put it together. It's because the nightlife is.
Well,
and I haven't
think
seen
about Brandon Banks back in the day, man. He
Brandon
got stabbed.
Banks.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen pictures of Chase with a bunch of rappers and nightclubs and things like that yet. It sounds like he's got that together.
Well, that's because he was quarantined.
That's true.
Oh, that's a good point. That's true. Good point.
It's a different rookie class right here.
Yeah. Different world for them coming in.
But those things are coming because it's just a rite of passage. Everybody has to go through it. So how he manages that is going to say a lot.
And I mean, Rob, I'm sure the rookie hazing stuff of taking everyone out for a $50,000 meal or whatever, that's got to be especially now with the rookie salary cap. That's going to be a lot rougher on some of these guys.
Well,
man.
I think it's a lot more tame now because it started to get tamer or it started to die down when I came in. When I came in, Fletch kind of knew. He was like, "Hey, this guy is a 6th round pick." So, Arakpo, you're going to pay 75% of everything. And then we just going to send Rob on croissant sandwich runs and breakfast sandwich runs. So I handled the small stuff. And
so there was a little bit of a socialist.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a wage. They recognized the scale.
Right. Right. That's fair. So, that's a lot more fair. Rob, you carry the helmets. That's fine.
Right. Stuff like that. So. But yeah, everybody goes through it, man, and I think it's dying down now.
Well, because the days of the first round pick making $80 million up front are long gone now. So
but he's still look. Chase still has a lot more money than a lot of these back of the roster vet types too.
He gets what, $8 million or something as a rookie deal.
I thought it was like 11.
It's 11.
Oh, okay. I don't have it right in front of me.
But
I have it.
It's still a good chunk.
It's a good chunk.
Yeah,
but the point is, I think we've.
Yeah,
I think we've made the point. That's an issue with him being from DC, 2nd overall pick. He's already a hero in this town. If he doesn't, it looks like he's got a strong family around him from everything I could tell. And he's not got one parent in the gutter or anything like that, like some of these guys do. So it's. I think hopefully it'll be all right. But I think Doug Williams needs to, as the player development guy, needs to be on top of it from day one. Hopefully he is.
Well,
the problem
Doug was a good influence, it looks like, on Dwayne his rookie year. So
Doug's been a good influence on everybody.
Yeah. So let's move on to the last year's first round pick, Montez Sweat, who it's kind of crazy to me to think about this. The last 4 drafts, we've drafted 4 defensive linemen. I mean,
they were still 30th in rushing last year.
Yeah, well, again, we hope that's just all scheme. I think we all hope that scheme. So Sweat, kind of more of that Kerrigan power style rusher in my mind. Am I right about that, or is he a speed guy there? Since I can't tell the difference. Apparently,
I would call him. More of a finesse guy. He lacks the upper body strength, and that's one thing that he has to improve on. He has to improve on his upper body strength and playing the run. I thought he was a little weak against the run last year. Not a little. Well, he was really weak against the run last year, especially early in the season. But I would call him more of a finesse guy, more of a speed pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him get manhandled in college at times, by some of these bigger linemen. And the other thing was I didn't think his speed translate like I thought Chase Young's speed translates better on the field. I think Montez Sweat's speed doesn't translate as well. It seemed like he was he might be the opposite of Chase. He did run the 4.45 or something. But I didn't see the burst off the line a lot of times coming from him, either in college or in the pros. And that concerned me about him, that maybe he's a long strider and a guy who can accelerate but doesn't have the burst,
Interesting.
I might be totally wrong, but that was always my fear with Sweat, and I didn't really see anything to dissuade my fear, in what happened last year.
Jamal, you brought up that he kind of had a slow start earlier, but he did come along in the second half, and since we have Rob now, Rob, is it usually take about the half of that first season to adjust? Is that pretty normal?
Yep. Well, the thing is when you first come in, you're focused on your job. You got blinders on. You're like, okay, I got to be in the B gap. I got to be in the C gap. I got to play the run like this. I got to play power. And then as the season goes on, those blinders get a little wider, and you're like, okay, so I got to be in the C gap because he's going to be crashing down A gap.
Right.
I'm going to loop around. You know, so you start to put the puzzle pieces together. So you're right on that.
It's the QB cone from Madden back in the day.
Basically, that's yeah, right. you go from a rookie to Peyton Manning cone.
Right.
It's pretty.
Well,
different.
here's the statistical evidence of what you guys are talking about. Is in the first 8 games he had 1.5 sacks. And in the last 8 games, it was, 2, 3.5, 5.5.
5.
You know, so he really came on big in the second half of the season. So I think what you're saying exactly translates into statistical production.
I'm assuming there's also a bit of a snap count thing too. But
well, I'm looking at his defensive snaps, and the snap count actually stayed pretty much the same.
Oh,
I mean, roughly,
okay.
69% snaps in game 1 and 68% in game 16.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you know I'm surprised that it was that much. Actually, I would have thought he would have maybe been like, half the time early on.
No, I'm not going to average all this out.
Yeah,
off the top of my
it's
head,
fine.
But it looks like it's pretty evenly distributed throughout the season.
Jamal, what about you? You got any thoughts on Sweat? Any expectations from this year?
Expectations. I mean, I do hope that Sweat. He had a few items that were missing, and it's just a pass rush tool set, and that's perfectly fine to not have that in your rookie year. To what degree is debatable because, based on what we understood from just a blind spot perspective, like a fan's point, you kind of anticipated him to have a little bit more than what he had coming into the NFL. But, I think that the coaching scheme and things like that may be able, not coaching scheme, but just the coaches in general, they may be able to help him out a little bit more this year, just off the name of Jack Del Rio. You expect him and whoever is coaching under him, his assistants, to help Sweat out, a young guy like Sweat out, and obviously Chase Young too. But as far as Sweat, you just hope that that's the case. Like last year, you kind of already spoke on it, so I didn't really have much to say. But last year, he went a good while, just looking, and just to be quite frank, he was just looking lost to a degree, and it doesn't help that your coaches are putting you in coverage. I mean, which is the basis of a 3-4 anyway. When you're at edge, like you're gonna have those moments, but he's done it. He did it so much to the point where he did it more than he ever did it in his career at Mississippi State or in college general. So these are just items that you hope is mitigated once he goes to that 4-3 and he has his hand in the dirt 24/7. That he has the coaches and he has the mindset to be a better and a more versatile pass rusher once the season starts, if the season starts, I guess. But we're not going to talk about that.
Sure. Well, okay, so one last question about these 3 guys who are, I consider them all kind of equal starters, really, with how this is going to work. They're all pass rushers in my mind, first and foremost. When we get into a 3rd and 1 situation, I want each of you guys to tell me who are you got putting in there at defensive end to stop the run.
I think Chase Young needs to be in on every play.
Okay.
So I'd leave him in. I guess I'd probably go Kerrigan over Sweat. He's the vet. That's tough, because I do agree with Rob that I think Montez is more of a finesse guy, and so, Ryan Kerrigan being more physical. That having been said, I'm not sure Kerrigan's a great option at
because to me, that's one of his biggest weaknesses is run
stop. I mean, it may be that somebody else needs to be in there on a for sure run play other than either one of them,
Well, I would have to say the same. Chase, definitely every play. Kerrigan, just like you said, because he's a vet, he's seen most in and every play, just off. And he's a bigger body size. So I think he has the strength that Montez lacks. Not the best at run.
Sure.
Stopping the run, but I would go with those two.
I mean, because I'm also looking at some of our backups. None of these guys have stood out to me as run guys either. So, but Jamal, what about you?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Yeah, same thing. But I guess we'll get into it briefly, I guess. But the question that I would have also revolves around Ryan Anderson too. And I'd like to know you all's thoughts on where he fits in, because obviously, as we know, based on what Del Rio spoke on and Rivera to a degree this offseason, is that he's a tweener. Like that, they call him versatile, and I actually agree. But it's like, where do you really want to put him, or do you want to just see where he is once you guys actually step on the field? Like, where do you think he fits best? But I think Ryan Anderson had a quiet year last year, but it was his most productive year in terms of statistics speaking. So that's just one item where it's like, package-wise, you can make this work, but who's going to get the majority of the snaps? Obviously, Young is there, but what are you going to do about the other side? Because Anderson may be able to fit that mold, and if I'm not saying you're replacing him with Kerrigan, replacing Kerrigan with him. I'm just saying, because he's going into his last year, so I'm saying you're not replacing Kerrigan with him, but it's like, are you going to try and get him some snaps in spite of, or with the amount of people that you got going on? Because Young is going to be there. Young is going to be playing. So who's going to be on the opposite side?
Well, I mean, right now they have him listed as basically a Sam linebacker, Anderson. But we'll see if that works out for him.
Yeah, I don't want him rushing.
No.
Just not from the standpoint that he can't, because he did it in college. He doesn't have a particularly good burst off the line of scrimmage. For one, that's what slows him down a lot from getting to the pass rusher. And then two, he's going to get mauled in there. We saw it so many times over the course of his career. And I like the guy. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's a great special teams guy, and a role player. Not everybody's cut out to be, a big part of the defense. So
right. He's more of a utility guy.
I think he's too small to be a 4-3 defensive end. He's 6'2", 250 pounds.
He's going to
But what Jamal, I think you're talking about is Ron Rivera brought him up out of nowhere at a press conference a couple months ago, and started talking about how valuable he was, and it was without being asked. And so
that's a morale boost.
Right.
That's a guy who says, like, maybe this guy ain't buying into my culture. Like, let's throw him some love. Like this, it's BS.
We do know in the past he's always kind of been one of the, like, somehow he's the leader of the Alabama guys down there. Like, he's the one who brings them in. But
that might be it right there.
Yeah.
Ryan Anderson has been a disappointment, okay?
He's
a second-round pick. Yeah. Disappointment. He's never lived up to that draft status. I hope he does, but he's not a pass rusher. He's never given us any indication he's a pass rusher.
No.
He has been decent in the run. He's a bulky dude. He's fairly strong, but he's never going to be a starter here, especially on this defense. He's going to be lucky to get a contract, okay? That's as blunt as I can be.
He said everything I wanted to say. I was trying to be nice about it, though.
I'm not nice. Rob, you got to know, I'm very blunt.
Yeah.
Just say it.
Rob, we understand you got to be a little nice because you might talk to some of these guys.
Right.
So, we don't want anything getting back from you. That's fine.
I enjoy it when people don't like my opinions, okay? It makes me happy.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to some of these backups because we are over time already, but we got to get through them. Let's start with Nate Orchard, who came in, was it last year or the year before? He's kind of been a nice off-the-bench option. He comes in, maybe puts a little pressure on the quarterback for 5-10 snaps, and then he goes back to the bench. But fun to watch.
Great story.
Yeah.
He's a great story. He cried at a press conference, when he's been interviewed by J.P. Finley, I think it was. And he's a guy that's bounced around the league, a little bit here and there, and got his shot and did everything he could with this shot. He's a 2015 second-round pick, disappointed in terms of draft status, but I like the guy. Hopefully, I'm rooting for him to make it, as a backup.
I look at him, though, and I look at his size. He's only 250. I'm wondering if he's really more of a guy who should be in a 3-4 linebacker.
Well, I have him listed at 6'4", 260 is how I have him listed.
Oh, okay. I'm going off the Redskins website.
I don't know what's right. He might be neither one, but that's what I have him at. Sure. 260.
But I do wonder if he's more of a 3-4 guy.
Maybe.
Just based off how he plays. But still, as an off the bench option, what are your thoughts there?
Very, very, very solid rotational guy.
Yeah.
I like him. My only time really just sitting down and watching him play or watching anything with him on it was I watched a little bit of his college film, and then 2, when the Browns were on Hard Knocks.
Right.
That was like my real introduction to his game and how he plays. Obviously, he got cut in that situation, right. But that happens to most players. So yeah, just a solid option off the bench and good in the rotation.
Jamal?
I haven't seen much from Nate Orchard. I ain't gonna lie to you. I only seen him when he was on the Redskins, and as far as what he showed, it was just such a small sample size. But he was in that small sample size, he was productive. It's kind of hard to say that he doesn't have the opportunity to be a backup. He's played well here to get that opportunity. But it also goes to like the depth that we have here. Like I think he'll be fine here, but it's more so like how many opportunities is he going to get now? Like you already kind of mentioned it, Alex. Like we're talking about the backups and the depth roles here, so it's like how much opportunity will you see from Nate Orchard? You kind of have to factor that in when you talk about him. And I don't know if you'll see much of him as much as we seen him last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, because like he was playing because guys were also hurt as well. So that's kind of things that he was getting. That's the type of opportunities that he saw.
Yeah.
Well, there's a wild card in this situation when it comes to Nate Orchard because right now Jordan Brailford is a DN type,
right?
But they have him listed in the middle, so I don't know what they're going to do with him just from that standpoint. I actually
forgot about him.
Yeah, coaches keep younger guys in most situations, so that could be the only wild card in Nate Orchard's future is what they decide to do with Jordan Brailford because he's big, he's 6'3", 250,
right?
And played some defensive end. So
I mean,
he's a versatile guy. He did a lot in college. They moved him all over the place in college.
Exactly.
I mean, that's always the tricky thing whenever you're switching between a 3-4, 4-3 kind of philosophy. And I know it doesn't matter as much now as it did maybe 20 years ago, but some of these guys you have to figure out are they going to go to linebacker? Are they going to go to end? Because like you and I were talking, Nate Orchard, what is his real size? Is he 250, 260? Because 10 pounds makes a difference.
Well, I don't even remember where I got 260.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, with a lot of these guys, that's the case.
Look, I mean, if your name is Mike Shanahan, you think you can indiscriminately shove anybody you want into your scheme as long as they do what you say, and think it's going to work out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we talked about that with you last week there, Rob, how it like you kind of had to transition because you went from the 3-4 to a 4-3, and I know, it was probably different for you because you weren't, planning on being the starter necessarily, or they weren't planning on having you be the starter.
Yeah.
But it's a big adjustment for these guys.
It is. It is a big adjustment. I mean, and then on top of that, it affects the roster size at your position.
Right.
So instead of keeping 6 guys on a 4-3, now we're keeping 4 in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it makes a huge difference.
Right. And well, okay, so let's go. We kind of touched on Brailford, I think, last week or a few weeks ago when we did talk about linebackers, because I think Steve and I both leaned him linebacker initially. Let's go to the guy who probably is the biggest of the bunch, Ryan B. He's listed as a 6'7", 280 defensive end out of Marshall, which I guess maybe if we're looking for a run stuffer, because none of these guys look like run stuffers, that's where you want to think.
I don't know. I mean, I can't sit here and lie to you guys and pretend I've watched a ton of Ryan B film. I haven't. Look, this is a guy who's going to be lucky to make the roster, okay? I mean, if you get any production out of a guy like Ryan B, it's good. Obviously, they like him to some extent because he's hung around, a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what to think about him.
Fair enough.
Go ahead, Jamal. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it was gonna be 10 seconds. I was about to say I copy and paste what Steve just said.
Right.
That's all I was about to say. Copy and paste that. I ain't got nothing for you with him.
Yeah, I don't see him as a defensive end. He's definitely a defensive tackle body.
Okay.
I don't see how he makes a rotation when you got Settle, Ioannidis, you got Payne, Allen.
Oh, they're so deep at the interior.
He's a practice squad guy.
Yeah,
that's gonna get an opportunity if somebody goes down. So,
I mean, we kind of talked about this with the defensive tackles last time. Like, you're kind of set with who your starters and even your backups are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these real back the roster guys, I don't see how. And it's the same with the defensive ends. We know these top three guys are going to get most of the snaps. Maybe a fourth guy gets on the roster, and then everyone else, you're either practice squad or gone. Like, I was honestly surprised when they drafted. Was it Smith Williams?
Yeah,
seventh round pick.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the special teams value. Rounds 5 through 7, you're looking at special teams, developmental guys.
Well, Smith Williams is a guy who's very smart. Another one, Gandy Golden, like academic intelligence. He's got a job offer from IBM that they told him they're willing to hold the position open for him until he's done playing football. It may be that they saw him as a guy who's good. Well, that may be, but maybe they saw him as a guy who can pick up the scheme really well. He was a leader in college. He was a team leader. Maybe they just rolled the dice on a draft pick saying this guy's going to fit in quickly because he's so smart. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's such a thing as being too smart in the NFL. I don't know. I haven't been there. I can't speak to that. But if there is one, he's it because he's a very smart guy.
I mean, you talked about him being a special teams guy. I don't think of, like, if I'm looking for special teams, I'm always looking at linebackers and tight ends, not usually defensive ends. Maybe it's just me. Like, I guess,
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. I think it was more of a culture pick.
Yeah, maybe.
And in 7th, and let's be honest, 6th, 7th round, I was a 6th round guy, so I'm not going to shit on him. But 6th, 7th round, you're like, let's just throw a dart at the board. Like, here we go. You know what I mean? So, and maybe the guy sticks, maybe he doesn't.
Sure.
Worst case, you develop him for a year. Let's say Kerrigan walks away and this guy comes in. Now he's a rotational player.
I know it's a dart at the board, but I always think of those guys and guys like you, frankly. You're bringing them on to see if you can work out on special teams first.
Yeah, right.
Like that's the plan usually because you need
the odds of success. The odds of those guys making a long-term career are so small. Statistically speaking, go back to my analysis. We're way over time. I'm not going to go into all this, but I did a detailed statistical analysis of draft pick success a couple of months ago because I was really bored and I'm nerdy like that. And the odds are just overwhelmingly small. And so it truly is just a dartboard. Hey, we like this guy. He's smart. He interviewed well. Let's just see if he works out. Who cares if it doesn't? That's what it is. All
right. There's one more guy who I'm sure none of us really know much about. Cameron Malvix.
Malveaux. Man, come on.
Cameron Malveaux out of Houston.
He's another guy who came in. I don't know much about. Another guy who came in for a couple games, made an impact, made the most of his opportunity. That's why he's back again this year. Back of the roster at best. Who knows?
Right.
Well, what's crazy and what's interesting is 6'5", 265, but they got him listed as a wheel linebacker.
Do they?
By ESPN. I'm on ESPN right now.
Okay.
He's listed as a wheel linebacker. Obviously, I don't think he is that. 2 sacks. That's it. That's the only production we got out of the guy right now. Yeah. Well, 1 sack. 1 sack. That's what it is.
Well, he only played. Was he one of the guys that played that game with Nate Orchard when everyone else was hurt?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
it was in the everybody on God's green earth is injured.
Right. I'm actually surprised they didn't call Rob back up and say, "Hey, we just need somebody."
Right.
They were hurt.
I've been winded after the first 2 or 3 plays, but I'm good.
They're good for a few plays here and there.
Yeah, right. There's oxygen on the sideline.
Right.
Who knows?
That was a rough
he's another
game
guy. He's gonna. I always say about these guys, he's gonna get a shot to prove himself. That's about all you can say about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think we all kind of agree, or we all kind of know who's going to be the top 3 guys. I'm assuming a 4th guy comes in. Who do you guys think gets that 4th spot?
Jordan Braille. I'm going to die on the fence of Jordan Brailford.
I like
his college film. Yeah.
Okay.
His versatility helps him in this situation. I know we talked about it last week, but I think it's going to be a fight between Caleb Brantley and Settle. I would give the edge to Settle. Hear me out. but I really think they high on both of those guys, and it's going to be a dogfight between them.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Brailford either. He actually looked good in the rookie mini camps last year. I was able to see him there, but hopefully, at this point, he should be fully healthy. The quarantine and everything and all that type of stuff probably helped a lot of people out. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing him again. I can't believe I forgot about him, but yeah, Brailford.
He's still young, man. He's only 24.
Yeah, he's still young.
If they keep 9 from the defensive line group, I think it's Kerrigan, Ioannidis, Payne, Sweat, Chase Young, Brailford, and Nate Orchard, Jonathan Allen, Tim Settle. Then practice squad, Ryan B. Let me get through that. Ryan B., Caleb Brantley, Smith Williams. And if they keep 8, then Orchard's out. That's what I think.
Castle McKenzie. Do y'all remember him? I think that was 2018, I think, is where he had his shine. He tore his ACL. I think he tore it twice.
That's honestly, that's more prevalent than people think. Like once you tear once, it's high possibility.
Was your injury an ACL or was
MCL meniscus?
Yours was the MCL, right?
And it's still a bitch to deal with. Like
you were the one that said they were making you run and your stitches were bleeding and all that. Wasn't that you?
Yep.
Yeah. And MCLs are the same way, from what I understand. Like once that tears, like it can happen again and again.
It's a wrap. I've torn it 3 times.
Oof.
So.
Oh man.
Yep.
That's rough, man.
It's football.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what teams can do to prevent that. Like, it seems like the Redskins
not let people hit.
But it also seems like the Redskins just more than most have those kind of injuries.
I did a statistical analysis of that too. So I did a whole
so you do
thing about that.
The shitty part, in my opinion, was it wasn't like a freak accident. That's what pisses me off about my injury, because it wasn't a freak accident. I literally tackled the guy. I tackled Hightower, and then fucking freaking Hainsworth just dives on the pile and rolls my knee.
Jesus Christ.
That's what pissed me off more than anything. So, but it is what it is. Like you said, there's no way to prevent that type of stuff, man.
Yeah, that kind of thing you can't.
Wrong place, wrong time type.
Alex is gonna know who I'm talking about. You got Jamal and Rob won't. A Redskins legend told me personally in private that who has been on our show. So guess.
Yeah.
Told me in private that he was mad at the team for lying to him about an injury.
And this goes back 30 years.
This goes back years and years and years ago. So it's prevalent. It always has. We don't have time today. I'd love to hear Rob's take on. We're out of time today, but I'd love to hear Rob's take on how injuries are managed in the NFL. That's something we got to get into one of these days, one of these slow weeks, because I'd really like to give the fans more of an insight into that. Not today.
Yeah. All right, but we are way over time, so why don't we wrap up this show. Guys, good talking some football with you. We're going to have another interesting week, I think, of what's going on with the Redskins in the larger perspective. And other than that, I hope everyone has a nice summer, since summer is really kind of in the throat of things right now. And just, try and get outside, everybody. That's my advice. We've all been cooped up in the house too long, so get outside. And take care. Bye, guys. All right.